Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by the members of oldsschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with manicexpression.com, the website where you can truly express yourself.
Millions asked for it, and now Teen Nick is bringing back the 90s Nickelodeon. It's the 90s are all that.
On your mark.
This is a great idea.
It's a great idea.
Stop! Take 50, the 90s. The 90s. The 90s. When I say the 90s. The 90s. When I say Twitter, you say Rugrats. Flying flies with that.
Hello everyone, welcome aboard to episode 10 of Casual Chats. As usual, I am your host Patricia. Now right before we get on to interviewing our wonderful admins from Reopen Nickelodeon Studios, we have a couple of things that we want to plug. Firstly, Old School Lane has opened up its official Facebook page, which is facebook.com/oldschoollane. You can click that in the link below. Also, you can follow me on Twitter, which is at Patty_B_Miranda. And also like our YouTube page, and also follow our associate website, manicexpression.com. Also, another thing that we need to mention is that we're still waiting for responses for our next Nick Jukebox episode 5. Remember, it's listener's choice. Any Nickelodeon song that you love to listen to, please post in the comments and let us know. We're looking for opening themes, ending themes, any song that came out in Nickelodeon during the 80s, 90s, and 2000s is needed. So please let us know about that. And also, stay tuned, we're going to be doing a very special prize giveaway in honor of the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida, hitting 2,000 hits. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Currently, it is now 2,103 hits. Now,
that's a lot.
Yes, that is a lot. So now that we have introductions out of the way, let us introduce our wonderful admins. So, please welcome aboard the guy who created the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida page, Admin Zach.
I'm here.
And also, welcome aboard the guy whom you know, who runs the YouTube page, Classic Nickelodeon 96, giving you all your 90s news and all that good stuff, Admin Isaiah.
Hello. What's up?
Okay, so we have ourselves another admin joining us for just a few minutes, Admin Tim. Welcome aboard, Tim.
Glad to be here.
Known on YouTube as Zombie Louie 123, the youngest admin on the site, as well as one of the newer members. So please welcome aboard Admin Gabe. Gabe, welcome aboard to Casual Chats.
Thank you. Thank you.
And certainly not least, he's pretty much the heart and soul behind the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios page, always giving you the updates, always trying his very best to make sure that the studio gets reopened again, Admin Jacob.
Hello.
Without further ado, let's get on to the questions. Zach, since you were the one who opened up the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios page, what made you decide to do it?
Well, for starters, I actually got a nostalgic kick out of Ren and Stimpy. I started to watch it a lot because I was always a huge fan, and then it made me rediscover other 90s Nick shows such as Rugrats, Doug, Clarissa Explains It All, and then I did some more research on the studios, which I knew was about, or used to be anyway, and I decided what would happen if we actually brought the studios back. I mean, I think everybody would get enjoyment out of it nowadays, and that's why I came up with the idea.
That is a fantastic idea, because, as you know, a kid at one point needs to be able to claim a place as his own. Nowadays, if you want something like that, they can go to Disney World or they can go over to another theme park. But with Nickelodeon Studios, it was something special. Not only was it a theme park attraction next to Universal Studios, but it was also a place where you can be able to see how your favorite shows are made. And also you get to tour around the place, and it's kind of like a very special trip that a kid can be able to call his own.
I also think that kids need something to look forward to, and to be honest, Nickelodeon Studios is like a child's adventure playground in a sense, because not only do you get to be part of the audience of these certain shows, and not only is it a theme park attraction, but sometimes it actually gives kids opportunities to showcase their talent at a very young age, and on TV in front of a live studio audience, they get to be part of their favorite shows.
That is correct. That is definitely correct. And something like Universal Studios and something like Nickelodeon that we can be able to connect with. It's something that we see on TV, and it's always being advertised at the end of every show at the time. And so when you see something like that, you just wonder to yourself, man, I want to go there. Now, right before you opened up the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios page, you opened up the Rugrats Revival Facebook page. What made you decide to do Rugrats out of all the other 3 original Nicktoons?
Well, I've actually tried to do it with Ren and Stimpy, but I haven't got around to it. I mean, I tried to do pages, but there aren't ready pages to get the show back on the air. But anyway, the reason why I did Rugrats was because even though it has had 9 seasons, and even though I find the later episodes to not be as good as the originals, I actually feel that it could work into today's society. I mean, it still has a pretty huge fan base, and shows like that can last until eternity. For eternity, there's no worrying about how stale it's going to get. Some people might do so, but there's always creative talent on the show to keep it fresh. And I believe that now, that due to more workers coming in, I actually think that they could have more creative talent to keep the show fresh, and to not only keep it fresh for the young audience, but to actually reel in the older audience as well, to make it a family show rather than just for kids like Nickelodeon was trying to aim it at when it was on. I don't think it was just a kids-only show. I think it was a family show.
Yes, it was a family show. When Gabor Chupo was interviewed about Rugrats, he wanted it to be both for kids and for adults. When he was in Hungary, he was Hungarian. He saw shows back then that were both for kids and for adults. When he came over to America, he saw that they were only for kids. You know, when combining the ideas of Arlene Klasky, who was his wife at the time, and then Paul Germain, who was the other creator of Rugrats, they combined their ideas together, and Gabor Chupo said, I'm going to put in the family-friendly stuff for the kids, while for the adults, I'm going to put in a ton of pop culture references. Which is what he did. Like, for example, if you see Dr. Lipschitz, it was a reference to Dr. Spock. There was whole bunches of references to movies such as Dances with Wolves, and also A Christmas Story, and a whole bunch of other movies. So
Escape from Alcatraz.
Yes, that's right. You know, and also I actually made this joke a couple of times whenever I reviewed Rugrats. A lot of the people who were on Pee-wee's Playhouse went on to do Rugrats. Like, for example, you had E.G. Daly, who was in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. She was the voice of Tommy. You had Craig Bartlett, who used to animate the Penny cartoons. He was a writer on Rugrats right before he created Hey Arnold. And then you had people such as Mark Mothersbaugh. He was the one who did the music for Rugrats while also making the music for Pee-wee's Playhouse. And then you also had Cyndi Lauper, who sung one of the songs for Rugrats in Paris the movie. She sung the main theme song for Pee-wee's Playhouse. And then finally, last but not least, you had Paul Rubens. He actually provided a voice for one of the characters in the second Rugrats Christmas special. So it's also an interesting thing that all these people who went on to, do Rugrats went on to branch out in a whole bunch of other things. Paul Germain, after he left Rugrats, he went off to do Recess and Lloyd in Space. And currently, he's the executive producer of the new Pound Puppies on the Hub. And then you have Joe Aslenbeer, who is also a writer. He went on to help Paul Germain create Recess and Lloyd in Space as well. Craig Bartlett went on to create Hey Arnold and later on Dinosaur Train. And, it's so amazing how many people went on to do a whole bunch of different things. And now when you see something like, Klasky Chupo, they're starting to get back on. I mean, they have the new Splat shorts, and they're trying to create new shorts that they want to bring out. And even though that at first I was a little bit itchy about this revival on Rugrats, but, if they do it right, and I know they can, it can be successful.
I agree. I mean, I'm not... my friend James Harrison, who is actually going to be a new admin around July. I'll still be involved, but he's actually one of the few creators of this page because he actually helped me come up with the idea. So I think he should be credited as much as me. He actually sounds a lot like me, to be honest.
Even though he may sound like you, he'll never replace you, Zach.
Thanks. But it's like we're twins. Anyway, he's actually thinking of coming up with a script of a fourth Rugrats movie, and he's actually going to try and make it appeal to the people that like the older episodes and people that like the newer episodes, just combine them in, but giving it a fresh new twist to a new audience as well.
Well, if people can be able to make fan episodes of My Little Pony, then somebody can make a script on Rugrats.
Yep.
All right, now let's get to the other admins. Isaiah, now when did you decide to create your YouTube page and talk about 90s Nickelodeon stuff?
It was in 2011. I had just, I think it was 2008 when I started, going back and trying to find episodes of all that, because I'd always been, a freak about that show. And just from there, I kind of started talking to people online, on Facebook and YouTube about, their favorite 90s Nick shows and stuff, and I just wanted to create a channel that would kind of generate nostalgia and talk to people about, their favorite shows and stuff. And so in 2011, I created that, and then in 2012 or 13, I started 90s News to give people updates on their favorite shows.
Well, currently you have over 2,000 subscribers, and I gotta say, that's pretty impressive for somebody who's been doing this for over a year.
Thank you.
And, also there was another thing that I mentioned to you on Twitter, in which I said, you talk about New Nick, which is your little brother, what was your brother's name, Ian or something like that?
Noah.
Noah. So Noah was the new Nick, and you were the classic Nick. And I was just making fun. It's like, what do you call 80s Nick? Is it old school Nick or ancient Nick? Yeah, I was joking around with that.
I never got to watch too much 80s Nick. I gotta go back and watch some of that stuff.
Yeah, many people don't. The only time in which I did talk about 80s Nickelodeon stuff with somebody was when I interviewed Peggy Sue Clay, who is the person who runs the blog called the Classic Nickelodeon Fan Blog. She talks about everything from 1977 all the way up to 1986 when Double Dare came along. Yeah, if any of you guys want to check her out, I'll put the link down below. She's fantastic. But yeah, many people, when they discuss about Nickelodeon, they never talk about 80s Nickelodeon. They always talk about 90s Nickelodeon, which is true. A lot of people, they started getting cable around the 90s, and it started broadening out, and that was when a lot of influential and innovative shows started to come out. And so you would see a bunch of people reminiscing about that, as opposed to the 80s, in which they mostly acquired their programs.
I saw Double Dare and Hey Dude, and that's, pretty much it from the 80s Nickelodeon stuff that I watched.
That's the most common answer I've received about that. Double Dare and Hey Dude is the most common answer I've received when talking about 80s Nickelodeon. So don't feel bad, don't worry. In fact, before I started doing the Nickelodeon tribute, in which I decided to review every single Nickelodeon show, Double Dare and Hey Dude were also the only shows I saw. And then I saw the other shows before then. So don't worry, you're not alone.
I did watch some, you can't do that on television.
Oh yeah, well yeah, you can't do that on television is another one.
That's just what started the slime.
Yes, that's right. And an interesting story about how the slime started. It started with the creator. He wanted to basically dump a whole bunch of, the people who were becoming guests on the show. and then they forgot all about it. And then 1 week later, they looked at it and it was like basically moldy. And then they said, dump it on the kids anyway. And that was how slime came to be.
And it even had different colors too, which was really cool.
Yes, it did. It's actually the only time in which we actually get to see different colors on the slime, like red and blue and yellow. In fact, there was an article that was saying, what color slime do you like? And there were people who were complaining that the green slime is the best because it was the original. First of all, there was a whole bunch of different colored slimes right before they decided to go with green.
I think people associate slime as, snot, green, or Ghostbusters.
Exactly.
You got Slime by Slimer, it's green. So everybody's like, oh, that's green. And that's what Nickelodeon mostly used. So now everybody's like, oh, I like green.
Exactly. I would think definitely so.
And don't forget, figure it out, they've used multiple colors at one small point.
Yeah, it did. It only used, like, maybe a little bit of yellow, a little bit of pink, so... Yeah, not all the time where you see the slime being different colors. That is true. So basically, yeah, You Can't Do That on Television was a Nickelodeon show that you saw in the 80s. Any others that you saw? Obviously Double Dare would be one of them, right?
I mostly saw their Family Double Dare and Super Sloppy Double Dare.
Right.
I do remember my brother telling me, because he's like 30, so he grew up with a lot of this. He remembers, like, the original Double Dare was just 2 kids versus 2 kids.
That's right.
He even remembers the old Nintendo game when it came out, which I've been trying to get a hold of.
I actually played the old Nintendo game. It is awful. You do not want to play it.
My thumb was hurt at the end of the obstacle course. I couldn't get up the mountain without sliding off.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Guts.
Yeah, Double Dare is another one. A lot of late 80s shows that came out, such as Don't Just Sit There, Total Panic, Spartacus and the Sun Beneath the Sea, Mysterious Cities of Gold, Kids Court, Eureka's Castle. So, anyways.
I always love Eureka's Castle.
Yeah. I interviewed... Oh, yeah, definitely. I interviewed Cheryl Blaylock and Noel Mcneil. Those are the people who...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were the people who played Eureka and Magellan.
Right.
Yeah, Kevin and I actually met Cheryl a few months ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we were in New York, and we basically met up with her, and she told us a lot of great stories about working in Eureka's Castle. Let me ask you something, Tim. How did you find the reopened Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida Facebook page?
It was on the side of one of my pages, I believe, on my Facebook, and I decided to just get it, and after a while I contacted Zach and asked if I could join, and he said sure, and went up to 10 administrators, and finally he's like, well, I got too many, and then went down to 6, and I was like, please don't delete me, and he's like, oh no, you're working hard, I was doing V on there and everything, and kept on going, and I've been there ever since about 500, 600 people, so that's kind of like why the joke, it started as a joke between me, being co-head admin between me and Zach, but now, he has me and him to kind of run things and hire all the admins, so it's been an honor to work with him.
Gabe, when did you decide to do a YouTube page dedicated to talking about Nickelodeon stuff?
Well, I was doing vlogs on my Facebook, and one of my friends, Nicholas, recommended that I get a YouTube, and I asked my mom, and she said it's fine, and I just got it. And
I'm not to be rude or anything, but how old are you exactly?
12.
12. It seems like, not many 12-year-olds seem to follow a lot of 80s and 90s Nickelodeon stuff. Mostly they gear either toward the 2000s or they gear to stuff that is going on today. What made you decide, or what made you see 90s or 80s and 90s Nickelodeon differ from the other stuff that was going on today or was going around when you were younger?
Well, how I discovered the first time I saw 90s Nick was on the 90s Are All That blog, which I was exposed to when my brother found out it was airing. Then I started recording it at night before I went to school, and then in the morning before I went to school, I would watch all that and stuff, and I really enjoyed it. And I just thought it was overall more enjoyable and better than like all the other stuff.
Now this is interesting because whenever people talk about 90s Nickelodeon and people talking about nostalgia, some people think that they basically are wearing rose-colored glasses when they're looking back on these kind of things from their childhoods. I wrote an article a few months ago about whether 90s Nickelodeon is classic or overrated. And I did talk about that the 90s stuff, they were influential and they were innovative when they first came out, and it drew a lot of attention towards a lot of kids. Most kids had never seen Nickelodeon shows during the 80s, and whenever they see the 90s stuff, it basically was a huge standout compared to the stuff that they used to show on Disney in the afternoon. Cartoon Network wasn't even out yet. Then there was Fox. Then there was the last years of NBC and CBS showing off cartoons. And then also, of course, you had PBS, which was mostly educational stuff. But yeah, I think that with 90s Nickelodeon, there was something about it that was different, that was edgy, that was, as they call it, the anti-Disney. And here we have somebody here who never grew up with 90s Nickelodeon, and yet he thinks it's superior, which is not something that a lot of people can say on. I must be...
Yeah, I found it weird because I never even heard of these shows except for Ren and Stimpy, which I recorded. It was on at like 2 in the morning when the Nicktoons Network was on. Remember that?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know, I just found it boring. And then now that I'm watching it again, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it is very interesting of how we look at a show that we don't really understand, and then when we become older, we look at it, it's like we're looking at it for the first time. I think the thing about 80s and 90s Nickelodeon in general is there were some things about it that it garnered a lot of creativity. It garnered a lot of the iconic moments and actors and the stunts that they used to pull off, and it was just something unseen. And also the merchandise was also a really key factor into it, like the VHS tapes and the DVDs. The GAC. The magazines, the little toys and action figures. So Jacob, you so basically when it comes to the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios Facebook page, you pretty much are the one that most people are associated with. You started things like calling the Nickelodeon studios in Hollywood and calling Klasky Chupo and getting information about all those things. What made you decide to build up that passion that you've been receiving and you've been giving to other people who have the same nostalgia?
But basically what I did was I used to do a lot of prank calls and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always just been able to call people and be able to be like, whatever, it's just a call, normal call. And so ever since I got involved with doing the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios division, I got involved with Splendor Universal and stuff. And I always remembered the Nickelodeon Studios from going and watching Gus Legends of Distant Temple. I just got on that page and posted all the stuff I could and all the stuff I know, and just got involved that way.
Well, I gotta say that out of all the admins, a lot of people really love and respect you because you do a lot. I mean, from being determined to call everybody and for getting as much interviews into the page as you can. So I commend you for that.
I honestly do congratulate you, and honestly, I do think that you should be credited for boosting up the page. I mean, sure, I should get credit for creating it, but you should get credit for establishing it.
It's just a big thanks to you for making the page because you started the whole thing, and if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be an admin. I just really think even if I wasn't an admin, I'd be promoting it as much as I could because I really want people to help reopen the Nickelodeon Studios because it's such an awesome thing to everyone around the world.
I agree. And a couple of questions that we want to ask is, if Nickelodeon Studios was not able to open up in Orlando for whatever reason, one of the reasons why Nickelodeon Studios couldn't stay open was because a lot of the shows were being filmed in California. So that's where most of the celebrities are, and that's where most of the filming takes place. So if Nickelodeon Studios was not going to be in Florida, where else would you want to see it happen, and why?
Is that question for me?
Everybody can answer.
I think if anywhere, I'd like to see it reopen in New York.
That's a great idea.
Because Nickelodeon, their corporate office is there, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty much a universal place. And if not that, probably somewhere like Texas, because the only big downside is it's so hot, but that's like pretty much the center, not the middle or center, but like...
It's practically it's the biggest state in the United States.
Yeah, so it's a place where everyone could go to pretty easily. Like all the states, if I ever want to fight, there's always a stop in Texas. So I think that could be a definite place for them to reopen. But New York would be the number one place for them.
Wow, New York that would be a really good idea. Isaiah, what place would you like to see Nickelodeon Studios be reopened if Orlando, Florida was not an option?
New York sounds cool. That'd be awesome, but I mean, I don't know. It's not really as much the location for me as it is the programming.
That is true, Isaiah, but you also have to consider that there are a lot of people who are going to be, there are a lot of celebrities that are basically branched out in multiple places. It may not be a big deal to us now, but it'll be a big deal for people who want to open it for money and for business and for production. So, yeah, a place like either California or New York would be a great place for Nickelodeon Studios to be reopened if it was not Orlando, Florida. When Nickelodeon Studios was first opened in 1990, it was Florida was basically Hollywood East, or as some people like to call it, God's waiting room. So now that it doesn't have that reputation anymore, there aren't as much celebrities in Florida as compared to California. I guess a location would be important.
In Florida, I live in Florida. I live in Tampa pretty much. There is so many celebrities that live here and fly to Hollywood. Don't get me wrong, Hollywood has a lot of celebrities, but I guess Florida's where like the older celebrities live now. But there's still a lot of young celebrities that live in Florida, especially here in Tampa and stuff. I don't know really names because there's just so many. But I think honestly, Florida would be the only place to really reopen it other than Hollywood, because Florida has so many people live here, and it's a nice place sometimes. Florida's not the best place ever.
That is true. What about you, Zach?
New York, to be honest, because New York is where Nickelodeon is located, as Isaiah already said. But I think that Nickelodeon should be relocated in New York, because New York is actually Nickelodeon's home. It's where Steven Zargami's office is, and basically, I actually think it would do great in the Big Apple.
I think so too. If we can be able to find some room for it, I think it'll be great for it to be opened. Tim?
Ooh, that'd be a tough one, really, because you got to find enough space to really have the filming area. I mean, yeah, Hollywood, they got their filming areas down there already. A lot of the stuff is down there, and like you said, a lot of the people getting their starts, and that's kind of like where the music industry and everything is. So everything's a good position, but besides California or Florida, New York, I guess, because a lot of the headquarters are there, but a lot of stuff has been damaged out there, and there's this Times Square. There's not much place to put one. Trying to think of a good spot so everybody could really access that would bring a lot of people in. You'd have to really, I think that's why we're trying to get Florida, is because that's just where everything was, and it's a great attraction. It was always warm out, and it had the theme parks down there for Universal.
That is true. I mean, next to California, Florida would be the next place to go to for nice weather. And, a lot of people, tons of people come to Florida, especially families and elder people and, people who just want to get away from the cold weather. So, like you said, I mean, if Florida, hypothetically will not be the place for Nickelodeon Studios to reopen, then the only place I can think of is California.
We have to look for a place that everybody will be able to drive to. They'll want to come. Maybe there's, I don't know what else is around the area that people can also come see. They've had problems with hurricanes down there, and they almost had another tornado warning, to what Jacob told me down there, and he was worried that the old studios was going to get hit. California has earthquakes and stuff. They might want to find somewhere that doesn't have a lot of natural disasters to keep the studio nice. So that's going to be another deciding factor.
Gabe. Now, if Nickelodeon Studios were to be reopened, but it was not going to be in Florida, where would you like to see it reopened?
That's actually a tough question. Probably somewhere in California, like in the Universal in, what was it called? Isn't it in Hollywood?
Yes.
The other Universal?
Yes.
Yeah, there.
Yeah, California is a really good place. That's where the Nick Hollywood is, where they usually shoot their shows, so that would be nice to see. Now here's the next question that I asked. If Nickelodeon Studios does get reopened, we also have to consider that you have to do the current things that are on Nickelodeon. You have to put in the current shows, you have to put in the current logo, the current colors. But there are some people, when they ever think about Nickelodeon Studios, they think about the Nickelodeon Studios that was opened back in the 90s. Now, it got me thinking about maybe it can be integrated, the old and the new together. Disney World does a really good job with that. We can have a little bit of Ren and Stimpy, while also at the same time we can mix a little bit of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Legend of Korra. What kind of old and new things would you like to see integrated if Nickelodeon Studios does get reopened?
I think it can be done. Really, I think they need to switch to the old logo, though. It doesn't have to be the old building. It doesn't have to be the old colors, but it'd be nice. But I still think they can keep new shows going. I really don't see a problem with it. So, there's many ways they can do it. Bring some rides in there, put an area with Nickelodeon stuff. Have ways to meet the cast of these shows, kind of like they used to do on the tours and stuff. And I think with some work, I think there is ways that we can integrate both old and new.
Right, and when you mean by old logo, Tim, you mean by the Nickelodeon Splat logo, because before that there were 3 other logos that Nickelodeon had before they switched over to the Splat logo.
Right. Definitely I'm talking about the one that was on the building, the original Splat.
Yeah, that's the one that came out in 1984 and has been lasting for over 25 years. The other logos that came out previously, one of them was rainbow colored with a pinball in the middle. The other one was basically all black, and the other one was black, but it had a person looking through the logo like if it was a real Nickelodeon. For a lot of people who don't know, a Nickelodeon was a smaller movie theater that came out like around the early 1900s. The name Nickelodeon derives from the word nickel, as in you actually got to pay a nickel to see the show, and Odeon, which is Greek for theater. So the person who named Nickelodeon decided to create a logo that symbolized that. And then as time went on, it went through multiple logos before we got to the one that most people know of.
Well, I'd like to see the old logo come back. Have all the old signs and everything. The Splat logo. And have the live action shows be shot there. Have a mixture of tunes. Have the popular retro Nicktoons and the new stuff combined, sorta. It would definitely work, since it would be a good mix of modern and old school.
Exactly.
Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, Blam, Dog, the Nickelodeon version, obviously, and Wild Thornberrys, Real Lancers, Cat Dog, Rocko's Modern Life, even SpongeBob and the Fairly Odd Parents.
And what kind of new things would you like to see in the new Nickelodeon Studios if it ever gets reopened?
Legend Korra, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and even though I'm not a huge fan of it, iCarly.
Okay. Isaiah?
Just like a lot of the classic Nicktoons, like Zach said, like Rugrats and Ren and Stimpy and that kind of stuff.
And what kind of new things would you put in there?
I don't know. I don't watch a lot of new Nickelodeon. I'd say just like newer SpongeBob, although I know that's ending soon, and Fairly Odd Parents and stuff.
It's ending?
I heard it was. I don't know if it's true. But, it was a post. I think it was on Internet Movie Database, saying that the sequel to the movie would be coming out in 2014 or something. Yes. And then that would be the end of it.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. And you know what? If that would be the case, then great. I've heard there's not much information about the movie, but I do know that Steven Hillenburg is going to be back to direct it, and the people who wrote the first Kung Fu Panda movie are working on the script.
Paul Tibbitt's directing it and Steven Hillenburg's writing for it. Paul Tibbett can actually be good when he's under Hillenburg's direction, in my opinion.
I think so too. Trust me, if you want to do a movie based on an animated show, the creator and the director, it is crucial for that, because otherwise it wouldn't be doing as good. Because otherwise we would have another Last Airbender.
Oh gosh, that movie bombed.
I'm so sorry. I have to review that eventually. Okay. So, Jacob.
In the SpongeBob movie, number 2, I think it says, no longer a boy, or not the same boy, or something like that. So I think that means, this means it's going to become, he's going to no longer be a little kid anymore. It means he's going to grow up, become a man. I don't know.
To tell you the truth, SpongeBob was technically a man, but he was acting like a child When Steven Hillenburg created SpongeBob, he always was influenced by Jerry Lewis and Pee Wee Herman, and he basically created the character of SpongeBob like that. It was basically their influences in which he's a man, but he's acting like a child.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah, so basically, it would be nice to see SpongeBob mature in this one, because he almost did in the first one, so it would be nice to see him come into fruition in the second one.
I think his character... Sorry, I interrupted again.
Go ahead.
No, that was my fault.
I think SpongeBob's personality actually changed when the show was brought back after the movie, when the Nickelodeon did a revival of it after the movie, and then SpongeBob's personality became more childish, and Patrick became a bit more sarcastic, and Mr. Krabs became a bit more money obsessed, and Squidward hasn't changed though.
Okay, so Jacob, I didn't ask you the question. If you were to see, if Nickelodeon Studios were to be reopened, they have to integrate the new stuff into it. So, what kind of old and new stuff would you like to be seen integrated?
The old stuff would be, I would have to say, Legends of the Hidden Temple, Gus. Not that my family's got Gus, even though I heard a little rumor saying that there's going to be another season. I hope there's not.
After 3 years of there being another season, I don't know. I doubt it.
It sounds like something that might be possible, because the source that I have, that it might be coming back to Universal. So
who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. But the old shows I'd have is Legends, Guts. I'd have Figured Out tape there, and I'd even have the new Brain Surge show.
Oh.
Is that even on anymore?
Yes, it is on. It's just not showing as much compared to the reboot of Figure It Out.
Yeah, I'd definitely bring that back. The host of that show and Figure It Out is definitely has some talent, and in my opinion, could be the new version of Summer Sanders as a host on Figure It Out.
Yes.
Really, really good.
Oh yeah, I love Jeff Suthman. In fact, when I talked about my top 10 underrated Nickelodeon shows and my top 20 Nickelodeon male role models, I made a comparison that out of all the Nickelodeon game show hosts that came out after Mark Summers, Jeff Suthman has a lot of talent. He's basically like the next Mark Summers in his generation. Out of all the game show hosts who had ever been on Nickelodeon, he's the one who's actually interacted with children. The other ones, they either have never interacted with children or this was their first time interacting with children in a TV show. So, he has experience with Nickelodeon. He's currently hosting 2 Nickelodeon game shows. Before then, he was Pick Boy on You Pick Live. He's very interactive. He's very energetic. I think he is, in my opinion, the next Mark Summers.
Definitely, for sure.
Yeah, because Mark Summers is actually was very energetic when he was on Double Dare, and he loved mixing with kids, and he was even enthusiastic about the time capsule thing, and he really seemed passionate about it. Genuine.
Yeah, definitely, because when I interviewed Mark Summers a few months ago, he was talking about that before he did Double Dare, he used to be a magician. Did any of you guys know that?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I knew that.
Yeah,
I knew that because I'm actually doing a lot of magic stuff myself, funny enough, and I found that out about 6 months ago, and I was like, wow, that's really funny.
Yeah, because before Mark Summers became a game show host, he was a magician. He had been ever since he was a teenager. He did a local kids show where he did his magic, where he, in his hometown, and he also did magic. If any of you guys remember, one of the very first Nickelodeon Halloween specials, which was Mystery Magical Special, in which Mark Summers would star, and he was the producer, the writer, and the director, in which him and 3 other kids would go into this haunted house, and along the way, they interacted with magicians.
That's really cool. I'm going to have to go back and watch that.
It's actually pretty interesting. It hasn't aged very well because it's so hokey and cheesy, especially if you look at the kids' actors. It's so funny, but at the same time, the magic is really good, especially when you see Mark be a magician. It's really cool. So, yeah.
I'd just like to say, while we're on the topic of Mark Summers, I'm going to try to get him on a podcast this week. But that obviously didn't happen. Hold on, let me find the message. He's really not in contact with Nick. He doesn't really wanted to talk about Nick anymore.
No, not
even
really.
though he's just done a couple interviews. I asked him if we could do an interview about Nick, because he said, what would the topics be about, and where would it air, and what is it for? And he said, I will pass. I want nothing to do with Nick, as I have told you numerous times. Me and Nick are on speaking terms, and I want nothing to do with endorsing them in any way. But thanks for asking. Good night. And then I messaged him back a couple times, and he just never messaged me back.
Wow, really?
Who was it? Who doesn't? Who and Nick on speaking terms?
Mark Summers.
Wow. Seriously, I mean, he's like the host. It's like, how come they're not on speaking terms? We'll never know that. That's a shame.
And it's weird because just about a month ago, Philo Smith did an interview with Mark Summers, and it just seems like within the past month, Nick and him have just completely dropped terms in speaking.
I have a reason for that.
You do?
Yes. You see, the reason why is because, as you recall, he hosted the game show What Would You Do? Or as he likes to call it, Why Am I Here? And, yeah, it was during the time in which, he didn't really care for the show very much. And when the both of us decided to talk about Nickelodeon stuff, I didn't really go into What Would You Do? And then as time went on, he kind of, disconnected with Nickelodeon. The last thing that he did with Nickelodeon was... He was the executive producer of Double Dare 2000 and the reboot of Wild and Crazy Kids. And there were a lot of things in Double Dare 2000 specifically that he did not like. For example, the fact that there weren't a lot of changes to Double Dare 2000. It pretty much played it too safe with the exception of the host, Jason Harris. And, there were just a couple of decisions that the studio did that he wasn't too keen about. So then afterwards, after Double Dare 2000 and after the reboot of Wild and Crazy Kids were canceled, he went off and then eventually he would do the Food Network. And he would become the host of Unwrapped. And he's currently...
I love that show.
And, he talked about fond memories with doing Unwrapped for years. I mean, it was currently the longest Food Network program of all time. And, now he's the executive producer of Restaurant Impossible and a lot of other Food Network programs. And, yeah, it was a great honor for him and I to talk for about 30 minutes. Of course, this was before his unfortunate accident.
When was his accident? Because it seems like ever since he's just been not anything Nick.
Well, I'll tell you. You see, he was in Philadelphia. He was going to meet up with a couple of the people from the Food Network. It was raining, and the tires hydroplaned, and basically, he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. And then all of a sudden, the taxi driver, he was swirling around in the street due to the street being really slippery, and his face, half of his face, bashed into the credit card machine, and his left eyeball almost popped out of its socket. He had multiple broken bones in his jaw, and he had to go through a lot of surgery in order for him to recover. Now he's recovered now, thank goodness, and, he's back on working, back on Food Network, so yeah, as for Mark, he was one of the many people that I also interviewed, for the Nickelodeon tribute, as well as Noel Mcneil, Cheryl Blaylock, Moira Quirk, Mark Wiener, Justin Sharonko, Ben Diskin, Angelique Bates, Alicia Reyes, Brian Hearn, Christina Vidal.
I'm definitely hoping to interview Mo from the Gods soon.
I hope that'll be good, because I know that she's currently busy. She's doing a lot of voice acting. She's a comedian in comedy clubs. She does a little web series. She also does audio for books. So, all right. So I'm just gonna get to the next question. The next question is regarding about Nickelodeon Studios. Now, as we already know that a lot of the current shows that are being on right now, like Victorious and iCarly, they're canceled or they're off the air, so they need to put into new shows. What new shows or game shows would you like to see integrated in the new Nickelodeon Studios?
Double Dare, but with a new twist. Wild and Crazy Kids. What else? Wild and Crazy Kids. Maybe new episodes of Keenan and Kel, but no, not new episodes of Keenan and Kel, but a new show starring Keenan and Kel. But I don't know if that can happen because they haven't worked with each other in a long time.
They haven't worked with each other ever since the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie. Well,
I wonder why, though.
Technically, their relationship has been on and off over the years. I mean, because Kel's is now more prolific as a voice actor, and Keenan's on SNL.
And a lot of people say that about how, on TLC they published that they're not even talking anymore, and that they don't want anything to do with each other.
That right there is a little bit of a mixed rumor that happened on TMZ, in which, Keenan talked about, I don't see me and Kel working together anymore, blah, 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 stuff like that. So it didn't mean that he and Kel don't relate to, haven't spoken to each other or aren't friends anymore. It just means that they're on with...
They are friends, actually.
Yeah, they are still friends. Yeah, it's just that, both Keenan and Kel are off doing their own things. They're both married, they both have children, they both have different lives, and so... I don't know about a Keenan and Kel revival show, but maybe...
Or a reunion.
Or maybe a reunion. That'd be nice to see. But yeah, it would be nice if maybe that would happen, but who knows what, the future holds. Isaiah, what new shows would you like to see integrated into the new Nickelodeon studios?
Like classic show revivals?
Or maybe brand new shows that haven't been, came out yet. Maybe a new game show, maybe a new comedy, maybe a new...
That's what I was gonna say. Like, they need some new game shows on there.
Yeah, there's Splat a lot. There's the reboot of Figure It Out, and there's Brain Surge.
And they need some new Nicktoons, not like the CGI stuff. We are running out of actual cartoon shows. We need more hand-drawn animation.
Well, good luck with that, because CGI is becoming the big thing. Not even Disney's doing hand-drawn animation anymore.
Exactly.
It's not that they're not doing it, it's just that they don't have plans, but there is Phineas and Ferb movie.
They can do it like how they do cartoon shows nowadays, where they're they look like cartoon, but they're actually CGI done.
Right. A good example with that would be the new Monsters vs. Aliens cartoon, which I think it's pointless anyway.
Yeah, DreamWorks has to make a movie or a TV show out of every movie they make now.
I know. To be honest,
that's really annoying.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think DreamWorks has gone more downhill than Pixar. No. I know people are saying that Pixar is going downhill, but I think DreamWorks has gone more downhill. I'm not saying that DreamWorks is bad, but they've gone more downhill.
Well, we'll just have to see how it holds up because, it has some more movies coming out, so we'll just have to see where it goes along in a couple of years if they really have gone downhill. Because after Rise of the Guardians, they fired a lot of people from DreamWorks.
You mean they did what Nick did with John Kay?
Not necessarily. I don't know about firing Katzenberg. I'm talking about, the majority of the writers and the animators and the producers. You see, Rise of the Guardians was the biggest flop that DreamWorks had ever done. And so they thought to themselves, we need to make some changes, and so they fired a lot of them, and right now they have The Croods, which is not exactly doing very well. I mean, it is doing well, but it's not as regarded as the other DreamWorks movies, like, Kung Fu Panda or Madagascar or How to Train Your Dragon. So, we'll just see if the decision that they're going to be making is going to be a good one or if this was truly DreamWorks' downfall. But like I said, we'll see later on.
I actually liked Megamind. That was their best movie in ages.
Okay, so let's get to the final questions right before we conclude it. So Zach, what is your favorite live action show from the 90s?
Let me say, my favorite. You mean my favorite live action show
from the 90s? Yeah.
It's a tough one. I like Married with Children, even though that didn't originate back then. But,
no, it didn't. It didn't originate in Nickelodeon.
It wasn't on Nickelodeon, but it was on in the 90s. But it didn't start in the 90s, I don't think.
Yeah.
But my favorite live action shows are Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Kenan and Kel, which is on Nick, Clarissa Explains It All, Frasier, Friends, all those.
Oh, good ones. Jacob, what is your favorite live action show from Nickelodeon in the 90s?
That's a really good question. Does All That count?
Sure.
Probably All That then. I just really always liked that show. It's a really cool show.
And actually, all that has actually had a really big touch in my life because actually Kevin was actually one of my favorite characters. You know, he didn't get too much credit because when the Nickelodeon itself and Kevin is kind of the reason why I'm in communications in college. I am going to like video producing, camera filming, audio production, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and, so, you know, Kevin Coppola is still, you know, doing very well. He's mostly an executive producer for a lot of Disney Channel shows. He was the one who co-created Austin and Ally.
I would say for skits, it would be King and Kel. That's why I drink orange soda all the time. That's all I drink. That's why you look at the picture on the Facebook on our page. Actually, I have a picture of my birthday holding an orange soda.
Oh, yeah, I see it. It's really cool, actually.
And my cake, that cake actually in that picture was made by my mom, the Nickelodeon cake with the slime on it.
That is really creative, I gotta say.
Yeah. There was slime in the middle, too. There's lemon filling that was dyed. So that's really cool. And I would say regular show-wise...
Yeah, just regular.
Regular show-wise, what I like would be either... Well, it wasn't on for very long. It was actually Animorphs.
Animorphs, well...
Nobody really situates it with Nickelodeon, but it was one of my favorites. Was Alex Mack. Or actually, Clarissa. Sorry, Clarissa Explains It All.
Yes, Animorphs, I didn't really like the Animorphs TV series, mostly because they didn't follow with the book.
Right.
But yeah, Clarissa Explains It All was a really great show. I've talked about it a dozen times in the Nickelodeon tribute. Are you excited that the guy who created Clarissa Explains It All is going to be doing a sequel of it in 2014?
Yeah, I heard about that, and I was really excited. I wanted to get Melissa Joan Hart on one of our podcasts or our page that we do and see if we can get some information from her and interview her. Because we already got Angelique Bates that's going to be talking to us very soon. She's really interested in joining us. Because I called her radio show and talked to Kel and her when he was on there, asking him questions, a couple of them. So, yeah, Angelique will be on there soon. We're trying to work with her.
Melissa Joan Hart, I tried very hard to get in touch with her. If you can do it, you know, kudos to you.
Yeah, we're trying Kel Mitchell, and we're trying... me and the rest of the crew were laughing, the rest of us admins, I wanted Phil Moore.
Phil Moore! I couldn't even get in touch with Phil Moore. I couldn't even get in touch with Phil Moore. Bilal Smith, I think Bilal Smith, the one who's doing the Nickelodeon Studios documentary, he did. I have no idea how he did it, but he got in touch with him, and I am so jealous.
Yeah.
All right, so...
It made me laugh watching the game show Nick Arcade. He would sing while they were trying to write down their points or something. He had a good energy to him.
I've written down multiple times that I thought that Phil Moore was the goofiest game show host that ever happened. Sure, many people say Mike O'Malley is, but Phil Moore takes the cake. Whether you like it or not, you know, at least he was energetic as opposed to boring. I'm looking at you, Rob Edward Morris.
And he would really cheer on the kids, hoping that they would win inside the video challenge, inside their versus the wizard.
The Adventures of Pete and Pete.
Good one.
It's really original, and I like how it kind of mixes reality with fiction.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It was kind of like going for the indie crowd, which is something that you rarely see nowadays. It's kind of like if Wes Anderson decided to make a TV series with his kind of quirky, charming style. And this was like before he even started his career doing movies such as Fantastic Mr. Fox and Moonrise Kingdom. And Pete and Pete was really well written. Will McRobb and Chris Viscardi were really creative together when creating the show. Basically wanted to do their version of their own childhood, but do it in a way that was kind of bizarre, kind of raw, but at the same time, it has like a very quirky mess to it that it can be really appreciative for the right eyes.
Yeah, I really wish they would release season 3 already. I've been waiting for that.
A lot of people have, but unfortunately, due to the majority of the music that season 3 plays, they're having a lot of legal issues. But I'm sure that they can be able to get around to it soon.
Yeah, it would be great.
Yeah, I mentioned in my review of Pete and Pete that it's one of the very, very few Nickelodeon shows that came out in the 90s, or even ever, that still holds up to this day. Any kid can be able to watch it and be able to find something about it that they really enjoy, whether it's the characters, or whether it's the everyday scenarios, or whether it's the music. Isaiah?
Mine has always been a toss-up between All That and Boy Meets World.
Good one.
Oh, I thought you meant like 90s Nickelodeon.
In general, it can be both 90s Nickelodeon and 90s live-action shows in general.
I want to see a revival of dinosaurs.
Oh, I love dinosaurs. In fact...
Dinosaurs is great.
In fact, Kevin and I are going to be doing our next casual chats on dinosaurs. We just finished seeing all the episodes.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and the ending. Oh, man. The ending has got to be one of the saddest endings I've ever seen in my life for a kid's show. It puts David the gnome to shame.
What happens in the...
Don't... I'm sorry. Not going to say. Sorry. You're going to have to see it for yourself. It's on Netflix. Watch it. Or it's on YouTube.
Alright, I definitely will.
Okay. Okay. Next one. Favorite cartoon Nickelodeon from the 90s or general? Zach?
Nickelodeon, Ren and Stimpy, Rugrats. Those are two of my favourite Nicktoons. And Rocco as well. My favourite cartoon in the 90s, Beavis and Butthead, South Park, if that counts.
Yep, it counts.
The Critic, Family Guy, let's see what else. What else came out in the 90s? Futurama.
Yep.
The Simpsons, even though it debuted in 1989.
Yep. Good ones. Isaiah?
King of Hell.
Obviously, like a lot of the Nicktoons. I watched a lot of Kids WB, like the original Pokemon.
Nice.
Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain, the Men in Black animated series, Batman Beyond, a lot of that stuff.
Awesome.
Oh, that's a tough one.
That's okay.
Trying to think, there's so many of them, but I would say like that. Probably Rugrats.
Rugrats, good choice.
I really like a lot of computer games and stuff. I've always liked the interest of seeing them mess up the word because they're so much babies and what kind of, like looking through life of a baby's eyes and stuff like that. Wondering what things are. I think I really like that.
Oh, okay. My favorite 90s one is Hey Arnold.
Oh, Hey Arnold. That's my favorite too. Why is that?
Just fun characters. I don't know. It just has some kind of like charm to it that makes me really like it. And the great characters and Helga and Arnold. The stories in there, a lot of good morals and everything.
Yes, I definitely agree. It was kind of like the mid-90s version of Doug in a way, but the thing of it is that with Doug, you had like the typical archetypes, but with Arnold, they had a little bit more development and the situations were a lot more serious. Like, I'm sure you probably remember the episode Helga on the Couch.
Oh, that's one of my favorite episodes. I feel so bad for Helga in that.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite episodes too. Kevin and I, who's the other co-founder of the site, we both wrote a list of our top 10 favorite Hey Arnold episodes, and I believe in my list that was number 2. So,
yeah, they're like every episode is really good. I love watching any of them.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I would say that maybe later on the other there were some seasons that were better than others, but still, each and every single episode was pretty solid. And, Jacob, you're next.
That's a really, really hard question. So, like, cartoon? I'd like to...
Yeah, cartoon, Nickelodeon, back in, general, back in the 90s.
Oh, jeez. Man, that's really hard.
Yeah, it is.
Probably Rugrats. Rugrats or... Oh, jeez. I'm trying to think of another one that I really like.
If you can't think of any, then that's fine.
Yeah, Rugrats and Wild Thornberrys. And honestly, this is going to sound really weird, but this is kind of a 2000 show, I would think. Jimmy Neutron, I'd like to see that.
I'm gonna ask the 2000s in just a minute.
Oh, okay.
All right, so the final one for 90s shows or Nickelodeon in general. What is your favorite underrated, and what show do you find to be overrated? Zach?
What, the underrated? Underrated, I'd say... you mean of 90s Nick?
Anything, yeah, sure, 90s Nick in general.
Underrated shows: Mission Hill, Rocko's Modern Life, Angry Beavers, Phineas and Ferb. I know it's underrated, but I know it's got a fan base and stuff, but I do feel like it's not as successful as other cartoons just yet. But
Underrated. King of the Hill to an extent.
Oh, yeah.
Beavis and Butthead. I mean, I know it was popular back in the day, but no one seems to acknowledge the new episodes. I mean, yeah, they do, but they're not in the mainstream as much. As for overrated, I'm going to have to say SpongeBob. And by I mean the new episodes, not the old episodes. I mean the new episode.
Underrated. I like Greenville.
Wienerville. That's actually one of our favorites too. Yeah, it's a show that nobody talks about. But then again,
nobody remembers it except one of my friends. Like, he talks about it all the time. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Not every day you get to hear somebody talk about it. And Kevin and I had the honor of talking to Mark Weiner himself about the show. Yeah, he was really nice, and he took the time to answer a couple of our questions, and yeah, I just feel that, with Wienerville, just like a lot of the Nickelodeon shows that came out, it's one that was never seen before and never was replicated ever since.
That was a really original show.
Yeah, it was. And I think it deserves more attention.
Yeah, it deserves a lot more attention.
Isaiah?
Underrated. I think All That was very underrated before the 90s or All That came out. Like, whenever somebody asked me what my favorite TV show was, I'd say All That, and they'd be like, what is that? All That.
Was this recently or when it first came out?
This was, like, in the mid-2000s, I'd say, like, 2006 or so. Like, before, it was after All That ended, but before 90s or All That started. And, but that, and I think overrated, I agree with Zach, was the new episodes of SpongeBob.
Yep. I agree. Jake?
Shows that are underrated, probably Fairly Odd Parents.
Fairly Odd Parents is underrated. Interesting.
I actually think it is. I mean, I admit it's not. Sorry about that. I know you're asking Jacob, and I feel like I'm being a bit rude.
Go ahead.
But I know it's not as good now, and I know people complain about poof and stuff, but I do think it's actually a lot more bearable compared to what is on the network right now. Except for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Legend of Korra, those are good shows.
Of course. Alright, so now let's get to the 2000s. So, favorite 2000 live-action show? Zach?
Favorite live-action show?
Yeah, and this is basically from the years 2000 to 2010.
Oh, I don't know, really. Let me think about that. Well, The Amanda Show, if that counts.
The Amanda Show came out in 99.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. But you can name it, it's okay.
I kind of like Double Dare 2000, if that counts.
Yeah, it counts.
Yeah, I think it's a bit underrated.
Is it because of Jason Harris? Is it because of the obstacle course?
Both, really. I mean, I'll admit it's not as good as the one with Matt Summers, which is the original. Nothing's going to top that. I mean, I agree with Matt that it wasn't as good as the original, but it was still okay.
And as much as I'm a 90s Nick guy, that's where I grew up. I grew up with everything 90s, like Fox Kids. I was so happy, actually, when I heard that Disney lost the license to Power Rangers, and Nickelodeon grabbed it. Because I've watched the new series, I've watched it since I was a kid, and I don't see anything wrong with it. So I'm pretty happy that Nickelodeon got control.
I don't see anything wrong with it either. I think, what Power Rangers Samurai and Power Rangers Megaforce, what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring an homage to the original, which I think a lot of people are really getting into.
Well, I was like clapping and stuff when I watched the first episode when it came out on that morning, and if anybody has seen it, their mentor, they have a robot that follows in this little temple thing, which kind of like is alpha to them. It's kind of stupid, and then Gosei, which like a tiki form is what he took, but he said his mentor was Zordon, which just like that connected everything. And I know later on they'll have a great Ranger War, which is like every Ranger, but the Rangers can actually transform into any of the past Rangers using a special power. So I think this is really cool that it's a way to make it so old and new fans can like it.
I think that's a really good combination because very rarely when you see something being rebooted, you have to mix in between the old and the new, which is what Zach and I were discussing earlier about the rumors of a Rugrats revival.
Yeah.
Or
That's the classified I liked a lot.
Ah.
I was in high school at that time, so it kind of helped.
Okay, great. That's an excellent show. Definitely excellent.
The last thing I also say about Power Rangers, if anybody doesn't know, I want to shout out to MMPR Movie on Facebook. This guy's making a fan film. If you haven't seen the trailer on YouTube, look it up. It's really cool. He's like making his own live-action movie take of like the Power Rangers versus Zed when he gets his powers back. So if you like that kind of old stuff, the 90s, look it up. It's really cool.
All right. Well, yeah, definitely look up MMPR. Isaiah?
Oh, go ahead, Isaiah. Sorry.
Oh, Jacob can go first.
Okay,
I'm
Jacob.
still thinking.
Okay, Jacob.
Drake and Josh.
Drake and Josh. Basically what many people call the 2000s version of Kenan and Kel. Not exactly because of various reasons, but yeah, pretty much so. Go ahead.
I like Drake and Josh, but I find Kenan and Kel to be funnier. Even though that people are thinking that it's getting overplayed on the 90s block.
Yeah, when Kenan and Kel first came out, it was supposed to be a 90s version of the Honeymooners. And then when the 2000s came along and they decided to do Drake and Josh, people pretty much missed the point of what made Kenan and Kel great. You see, it was supposed to be about two people who did a lot of crazy things together, similar to what the two main characters from the Honeymooners did. And with Drake and Josh, it was sort of like trying to be like the odd couple, which, it kind of makes sense. And also, Dan Schneider, even though he was the executive producer of Kenan and Kel, he did not create it. The creator was Kim Bass, who also created Sister Sister, and she was inspired by the Honeymooners when creating Kenan and Kel.
That's actually really interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah, a lot of 90s shows were inspired by, shows from either the 50s or the 80s. Like, for example, The Amanda Show was inspired by The Carol Burnett Show, and also...
I see that.
Yeah. Many people say, oh, The Amanda Show's not all that. Well, newsflash, it's not supposed to be. It's not a sketch comedy show. It's supposed to be a one-woman show with a whole bunch of other characters and her interacting and portraying herself as multiple characters. That's what it was about.
Didn't Dan Schneider take over all that during its new episodes?
No, not necessarily. He didn't take over all that, but he was still kind of like the executive producer. He left after season 5 to do The Amanda Show, and then as time went on, Kevin Coppolo and I forget the other guy's name, but they went on to help, be the producers of all that, and they helped write a lot of the episodes. And then as time went on, when the relaunch came along, they left as well. So that's why you see a lot of differences in, each progressing season of all that.
That would explain everything.
That's hard because I don't like very many of them. That's Drake and Josh.
Oh, Drake and Josh.
Drake and Josh is a good one.
Yeah.
To be honest, I actually think the 90s were the best time for Nickelodeon, and honestly, I don't think that there's a 90s Nicktoon that I don't like. That's how good the Nicktoons were, and I'm not saying this to be nostalgic, but seriously, I like and love each and every 90s Nicktoon.
I think the reason why is because when the 90s came along, it was basically hugely influential. When you think about the 80s, most of the cartoons were basically based on a toy lineup or a movie or a reboot of something that came out in the 60s. It was time for something new and fresh to come along. Then you had shows like The Simpsons and The Ren and Stimpy Show and all these shows that basically broadened it up. It was like a new wake-up to animation and live-action shows in general to produce something new that nobody had seen before in a very long time. So I think that's why many people regard the 90s as the best, and then, basically push aside all the other shows that came out before it because it didn't have creativity, it didn't have innovation, and it didn't have that spark that all the other previous shows would follow up with. You don't see a lot of shows in which it follows up with, basically based on a toy lineup or anything like that. You see shows that are based on good writing, good characters, good development. It was basically shows that were not only geared towards kids, but geared towards everybody. Not just selling a toy or basically trying to hype up something that's popular at the time just so that kids can be able to just be glued on the TV for 30 minutes.
I actually think that things went back to the 80s in 2005. But because I don't know why, but for some reason I feel like an 80s revival in
in terms of animation was actually coming back in 2005, because I felt that was the year that people were starting to lose their creativity.
It's not that. It's just that many people start getting nostalgic about a lot of things. You see that all the time. Back in the 70s, people were getting really nostalgic about the 50s, so you would see something like Happy Days. So trust me, seeing a show that came out in the 80s or in the 90s and being brought up to today is nothing new. It's just that, yeah, you're right, and there are some moments in which people start losing their creativity. But at the same time, for every one person who's being creative, there's at least 10 more who try to copy off of that creativity or who are playing it too safe.
Yeah, like when Paul Tibbett took over SpongeBob, it started to copy Ren and Stimpy, Family Guy, and stuff like that.
SpongeBob SquarePants was the Nickelodeon show that Ren and Stimpy wanted to be. It wanted to be a show that was both for kids and adults that could get away with anything. But of course, there have been a lot of problems when it came to the Ren and Stimpy show, especially behind the scenes, for a lot of the taboo topics that they were covering, and a lot of the delays and the cost of money for getting out, the small amount of episodes that were coming out. So with SpongeBob, it was pumping it out fast. It was basically doing the same thing that Ren and Stimpy did, and Rocko's Modern Life, and the Angry Beavers, and any show that tried to copy off Ren and Stimpy. It basically opened a floodgate of a whole bunch of creativity. But then as time went on, just like you said, when Steven Hillenburg left, that creativity just came downhill. And then people started going on to other shows, such as Family Guy and American Dad and a whole bunch of other shows.
And Phineas and Ferb and My Little Pony and Gravity Falls, the list goes on.
Yeah, Gravity Falls, Fish Hooks, the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Legend of Korra, Tron Uprising, Phineas and Ferb.
I love Tron.
Tron Uprising, Motor City. You'd be surprised of how many great shows are out there right now that people seem to overlook, which is, I think, in my opinion, people should give chances to.
I agree 100%. I mean, Phineas and Ferb is actually probably going to be Disney's breakout hit next year after the movie, because SpongeBob actually became Nickelodeon's breakout hit after the movie was released.
That's right, not to mention also Adventure Time and Regular Show, and The Amazing World of Gumball. In fact, Adventure Time and Phineas and Ferb were almost going to be in Nickelodeon.
I know, but Nickelodeon refused them because Phineas and Ferb seemed a bit complex for Nickelodeon.
And Adventure Time was too weird. And look where it's at now.
Yeah. They're pretty much two of the most popular cartoons online. And what were you going to say?
I'll be honest, I have watched maybe one episode of Adventure Time. Not even the full thing either. I don't know, I just haven't ever really sat down to watch it, but I know a lot of the kids that whenever they see like my Nickelodeon shirts that I wear to school, I actually have a lot of them. They always are saying, "Oh, do you watch Adventure Time too?" And I always say no. So I definitely got to get around to watching it if it's that good of a show.
Yeah, it's not for everybody though. I mean, if it's if you like shows like Ren and Stimpy, and if you like shows like Phineas and Ferb, then you'll definitely get into Adventure Time. If you're not into random adult humor or crazy surreal atmosphere or animation, then you're not going to get into it.
I definitely want to check it out.
Yeah.
And also, the majority of the writers for the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob, except Dan Povenmire, work on Adventure Time now.
Yep, they do. And the executive producer of Adventure Time, Fred Seibert. He also, was the executive producer of a lot of shows for both Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. What a Cartoon, Oh Yeah Cartoons, Fairly Odd Parents, Wow Wow Wubsy, Fanboy and Chum Chum, My Life as a Teenage Robot, Chalk Zone. In fact, he was one of the people that Kevin and I interviewed a while back. Okay, so let's get to the last questions. So yeah, you already talked about favorite live action show from the 2000s, favorite cartoon from the 2000s.
Yeah, we've gotten to that, and
Not 2000s, the cartoon, I don't think.
Yeah.
We did?
We talked about the 90s cartoon, we didn't talk about the 2000s cartoon. So yeah, what are your favorites?
For me, Jimmy Neutron,
mm-hmm.
the Rugrats revival, even though I enjoyed the 90s one better. That was still one of my favorite cartoons. And then I have two other ones. I don't know if this is 90s. I can't remember. The Buzz Lightyear Toy Story one. What is that?
That would be the Star Commander one, in which, Buzz Lightyear goes into Star Command. It's basically like a prequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came out in the 90s.
Oh, okay. And then my other one is Recess.
Recess! Isaiah, what are your favorite cartoons that came out in the 2000s?
Oh god, I had one. I can't remember where it was.
Can you describe it?
I'm blanking right now.
That's okay.
Sorry. Thought it was... Oh, it was Disney's House of Mouse.
Ah, House of Mouse. Great choice.
I really like that show.
Any Nicktoons from the 2000s that you like?
I like the first few seasons of Fairly Odd Parents. I don't hate the new ones. I just never really watched them.
That's okay.
Cartoon,
Yeah, and this is basically from 2000.
Fairly Odd Parents was my favorite.
Fairly Odd Parents. Good choice.
Avatar. Easily my favorite show of all time.
It's fantastic, I gotta say. Definitely the best Nicktoon that came out in the last decade.
Yeah, like character development, the story, and like Zuko and everything. Like the character development is some of the best I've ever seen.
I agree, especially when it comes to Nickelodeon shows. Sure, there are some Nickelodeon shows that have great characters, but they never had a continuing storyline. You just saw one episode and that was it. Most of the episodes that came out were standalone episodes in which you can watch it at any time. But very rarely were there ever was ever a show in which it had a continuing storyline. As Told by Ginger was one of them, and it came out before Avatar: The Last Airbender, but it was different. But with Avatar: The Last Airbender, it was something really, really epic, and something that you would never see in a Nickelodeon show.
Yeah, that was definitely new to the network at the time.
Right.
It's still sort of new to the network when you think about it, because they don't do that very often.
Well, they have Legend of Korra, though.
Oh, yeah, but, I mean...
I can see what you mean. It's not like a lot of anime-esque Nickelodeon shows, unless you want to count Kappa Mikey.
Yeah, there's not very many.
No. Anything, you'll probably mostly see it in Cartoon Network than Nickelodeon.
Oh yeah, you see all kinds of anime-inspired shows on Cartoon Network. You see, like, Bakugan and Beyblade and Pokemon.
Right. So, seeing it on Nickelodeon was something really, it really was a huge standout. And still to this day, I mean, the show almost came out 10 years ago, and it still has fans.
Yeah, a huge fan base. It's got an amazing fan base.
It's incredible. It's actually one of the, that show... was the one that brought me back to watching Nickelodeon. Even though that I was kind of watching it on and off, but it was the one that the majority of my friends and I would talk about. It was geared towards young kids, but at the same time, it geared towards people who were twice or even 3 times the age. Something that you would never associate with Nickelodeon. The last time that a show did that was the earlier episodes of SpongeBob.
Yeah, like, the new SpongeBob, I don't like the new SpongeBob.
Yeah, the different, they got rid of a lot of the writers who were there. Steven Hillenburg gave the position to Paul Tibbett, and any show that has been going on for longer than a few years really does turn out to be stale. Look at The Simpsons, for example.
Oh, I haven't even seen The Simpsons, so...
Yeah, you don't, nowadays you're not missing out, don't worry.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to admit, I actually do have a huge soft spot for Recess and Lloyd in Space. I'll also admit that they're really underrated and overlooked. I mean, Recess had the potential to be a huge hit, and it was going to be until they cancelled it. And Lloyd in Space was brilliant, and I love that show. I mean, I really do. I actually found it relatable, even though it was about aliens in high school.
Well, the reason why is because the same elements that Rugrats did, in which it dealt with relatable characters, and not to mention, with Paul Germain and Joe Aslambeer, who worked on Rugrats, they were able to take that same integration and put it on Recess and Lloyd in Space.
I know, and now I've learned why I love those shows so much, because I actually think Rugrats was also overlooked when he was working on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was decided that, thanks to the specials, that it'd actually be it would actually be called Nickelodeon's most successful show until SpongeBob came about.
Yep, it was. In fact, a lot of people, especially, the Nickelodeon executives, when Ren and Stimpy was still going along and that was shaping up to be the more profitable and more influential Nickelodeon show, a lot of people turned to Rugrats. And then you had somebody like Joe Murray, who created Rocko's Modern Life. He wanted to create a show that was more relevant. And there was nobody who really appreciated it until at least 15 years later.
Rocko's Modern Life has got a huge fan base since its cancellation, and I actually think it has a better fan base now than it's ever done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same thing with a lot of other shows that showed briefly and then it was quickly canceled. Rocko's Modern Life was one of them. The Adventures of Pete and Pete was another one. Invader Zim was another one. So you have all these shows that pretty much broke the mold, and then eventually it was just too weird for, when it came out at the time. And then nowadays it became hugely influential and iconic.
I actually think so, yeah. And also, Rugrats actually has a bigger fan base now than it did back in the day. I mean, it was starting to get a huge fan base, but somewhere along the line it started to lose ratings.
Yes.
Probably because of new shows like SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents, and it just couldn't compete anymore.
No, it couldn't. You are absolutely right. Was there any... so any of you guys have anything to plug right before we conclude the episode?
Yep. One, I am going to write a letter to 90s or All That, requesting them to add new blocks, new creative blocks, and no encores, better air times like 10 p.m. and perhaps those of certain Nicktoons. I think it would fare well on there.
Great. Isaiah, you have anything to plug?
I guess it's my YouTube channel. Just check it out and subscribe, and yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. I'm just glad to be here, and I'm glad everybody got us past 2,000 and continue to hopefully get more and get this place open. I'm already having this petition signed out, hoping we get them. We got T-shirts from me and Jacob made. That was from Bobby Erickson. They were kind of faded, but they're really cool. It's got our website out there and stuff. So, yeah, if everybody can spread the word about our site, that would really be awesome.
All right, yeah, and I'll definitely be posting a bunch of links down below the video.
Go subscribe to my YouTube at Zombie Slayer Louie 123. Go like Reopen X Studios, and be sure to follow our podcast on Blog Talk Radio. It's called the Original Nickelodeon Slimecast, and that's about it.
And Jacob, do you have anything to plug right before we conclude it?
Go like the Facebook page if you haven't yet, because I'm going to be going to Orlando in June. So we'll have a bunch of videos on the YouTube channel of Disney, and I'll be going to the former Nickelodeon studios. I'll be posting QR codes all over the place, and I'll be posting all sorts of stuff, and definitely a lot of video and pictures being taken there. I'm going to hopefully get into Universal and film where the first Stickly special was. I think it was Stickly's Brother Thou Shalt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really remember it. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? I think it was. I'll be filming where that was, with a recreation of Stickly I made.
Nice.
And I'll be definitely doing a lot of where like the former credits would be. I'll be making a couple of those. I'll just be making tons of videos where stuff used to be filmed and stuff. And I might go see the Blue Man Group. I'm not quite sure if I'll be seeing that yet. If I should go see it to get into the former Soundstage 18 or what.
Okay. Sounds great. All right, now right before we conclude the episode of Casual Chats, I want to do a special giveaway in honor of the site hitting 2,000 likes. I gave this clue in my announcement of interviewing the admins, and that was, it's 90s Nickelodeon related, and it came out recently. And that is, I'm going to be giving away a copy of Sick Little Monkeys, the unauthorized Ren and Stimpy story by Thad Komorowski. Now, the thing of it is that I have at least maybe 2 or 3 that I'm willing to give away. So, if you want to have a chance to win, it's very simple. All you have to do is like the video and post in the comments below on why you think that you deserve to win this book. Is it because Ren and Stimpy was your favorite Nicktoon back in the day? Is it because it was the first cartoon that you ever saw? Is it because it helped inspire you to get into animation? Whatever the reason is. I'm going to be picking out a couple of people, and I'm going to be choosing which ones are the best, and the winners get a copy of the book. You know, 2 or 3 people have a chance to win the copy of Sick Little Monkeys, the unauthorized Ren and Stimpy story by Thad Komorowski. If you guys are a huge fan of Ren and Stimpy, or Nickelodeon, or animation in general, you have got to pick up this book. It talks about the entire story of Ren and Stimpy, never told before. So it has stories from when John Kay started with Mighty Mouse and the Beanie and Cecil show, all the way up to Ren and Stimpy, and eventually ending in Ren and Stimpy Adult Party cartoon and what he's doing now. So, very simple. Once again, like the video, post in the comments below, and tell us why you think you deserve to win the book. And I'll be picking out 2 or 3 winners, and I'll announce the winners maybe sometime next week or 2 weeks from now. That concludes episode 10 of Casual Chats. Tune in next time in Casual Chats episode 11, where Kevin and I will be discussing about the 1991 ABC TV show Dinosaurs. So until then, I've been Patricia, and I hope to catch you around Old School Lane soon. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Yay!
Alright. Bye, guys.
Goodbye.